The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, Ginni-Thomas is her name, yesterday shared several images that purportedly showed black people who had walked away from the Democratic Party. I'll get into the details of what she shared and this entire movement. I've mentioned it before. I'm going to dig in now. But we are fully engaged, or we are underneath the full assault of an all-out psychological operation against the black community. Against people who are not Republican in general. And again, whenever I use that phrase, people who are not Republican, I'm talking about a broad spectrum of people from neoliberal Democrats, corporate Democrats, all the way over to Marxist, Leninists, Maoists, the extreme left. It's a broad range. They're not all Democrats. So just keep that in mind whenever I use the phrase people who are not Republicans. But that entire group is under the assault of a psychological operation that has a 2-year head start on the 2020 campaign. The goal of the Walkaway movement is to suppress the vote, particularly in communities of color. Now, if they can get these communities of color to convert and become Republicans, that's great. But if they can simply get them to stay home, then they've done their job, because this is their path to securing a victory for Donald Trump in 2020. Now, some people, there's a couple of articles. There's a piece from CNN. There's a piece from HillReporter.com that lay this at the feet of Russian operatives. But I absolutely have no need. It is promoted by. Let me finish this thought. There's no reason whatsoever to lay this at the feet of Russians, because the conservatives in this country are nefarious enough. Their methods are insidious enough to do this all on their own without the help of Russia. Nevertheless, right now, hashtag Walkaway is the number 7, the top 7th most promoted hashtag, being promoted by 600 particular Russian accounts that are being tracked, Twitter Russian accounts that are being tracked by securingdemocracy.org. Now, in all honesty, that could just be a single person who is using 600 accounts that could be traced back to Russia, and it could just be some freelancing guy who got paid by a conservative operative here in the United States. Now, that sounds a little convoluted, but it's actually quite simple. Someone here in the United States, a conservative here in the United States, wants to promote their hashtag Walkaway. And so they find somebody online who can help them with some bots, bots being simple programs that can give the appearance that you're bigger than what you really are, and particularly on Twitter. And they hire that person, and that person could either actually be in Russia, or they could be using a VPN that makes it appear as though they're in Russia. I don't know exactly how it's being done. I do know why it's being done, and I know why it's being promoted by conservatives here in the United States. And I know why we don't need to use Russia as the way to explain this psychological warfare that's being carried out on the black community. However it's being done, the reason is to suppress the black vote in the 2020 election. Now, to get to the specifics of what Ginni-Thomas shared yesterday, I want to read the memes, and I'm looking directly at her page right now. These are still live, even after it has been reported and proven that these memes are using fake people. They're still up. And each of the memes that she shared play on the same theme, and masterfully so. They're attempting to divide the black community away from the Democratic Party based on the fear of, quote unquote, illegal immigration. Now, I've talked about it before in terms of black voices who are doing the bidding of white supremacy by forwarding the agenda of white supremacists against immigrants, but this is the intersection between a well-funded psychological operation against the black community being carried out by conservatives, probably a bunch of white guys, and how they are capitalizing on voices in the black community who are spreading their own version of the same type of lie and propaganda. I hope that made sense. This is where white supremacists in the conservative party are capitalizing off of the work of black people like my friend Yvette Carnell. So here's a meme on Ginni-Thomas's timeline. At the top, you have a guy who looks like an illegal immigrant in a jumpsuit. And it says deported back to Mexico 11 times, returned to Sanctuary City 12 times, attempted murder with a chainsaw. Underneath it, you have a young black woman who says, so let me get this straight. The Democrats chose this illegal immigrant, illegal alien over Americans 11 times, #Walkaway in the description. And then you have another one where you see the New Jersey governor, Phil Murphy, who said, quote, we would use taxpayer money to send illegal immigrants to college for free. Now, that's not the exact quote that he said, but that doesn't matter because misinformation and disinformation doesn't need actual quotes when you could just spread viral lies. But underneath it, you have a black guy who looks like he's thinking really hard. And he's saying, quote, my wife and I work full time and still can't afford to send our kids to college. What's wrong with this picture? #Walkaway. And there's more. There's like 3 or 4 more. And each of them have been proven to be fake people or people who took stock photos you can just do a reverse Google image search and you see that these people are people who pose for corporate jobs, that type of thing. And here's the thing. Here's the problem. The problem is that you have white people who are using black faces that they got from stock photos to give the appearance that black people are leaving the Democratic Party so that they could suppress the vote enough to keep the white supremacist in chief, Donald Trump, in the White House. I've got a serious problem with this. Now, they have some co-conspirators. They have some accomplices in the black community. They have people like Candace Owens, who is promoting this #Walkaway. She is carrying out her own psychological operation against the black community on behalf of white supremacists for money. She's getting paid to do this. The entire Turning Point USA, from the young kid, Charlie Kirk, they are moving into the entire realm of targeting black communities ahead of the 2020 election. All of them know that if they can suppress the black vote just enough, they don't have to convert you to become a Republican. If you become a Republican, that's a bonus. But if they could just convince you to stay home, then they can do what they need to get Donald Trump elected again in 2020. That's at the core of this. And what's being done is such an insidious style propaganda. It can't be called anything else other than a psychological operation being waged, psychological warfare being waged against the black community to disenfranchise us. I mean, white supremacists and conservatives in this country have always understood how important it is to keep you from voting. The difficult part about this operation now is that you have black people in the black community who are doing this work for them. And to me, this is what I meant last week when I said you have black people who are serving as black white supremacists. They are carrying out the will and the bidding, and they're doing the job of white supremacy in this country. It has always been the goal of white supremacy in this country to keep black people from ever getting the right or using their right to vote. And that has been this is the most disgusting thing about it, is that now you have black people. You have the Candace Owens of the world. You have other people who think that it's intellectual. It's more intellectual for you not to participate in this system. When that faux intellectualism, that pseudo intellectualism, is nothing more than a contribution to white supremacy in this country. White supremacists have always wanted nothing more than to keep black people disenfranchised. They didn't have to worry about it during slavery. But after slavery, when black people began being politically active, they created entire institutions, entire regimes that spread across the country to continue disenfranchising black people in this country. The poll tax, the literacy test, anything that they could do, just sheer terror, threatening people. People died for that opportunity to vote, but we still voted. And then when that wasn't enough, when the Voting Rights Act made sure that they got rid of those things, they started instituting voter ID laws across the country. One state by another, showing there's a direct correlation between voter ID laws and the depressed turnout in black communities. But still, black people came out and voted. 2012, voter ID laws were not sufficient enough to stop us from beating Mitt Romney. And now we come full circle to the place where now white supremacists, people who want to maintain the structure of white male Christian supremacy in this country, are using the language of black people who for whatever reason have decided to build their platforms off of the fear of immigrants. White supremacists are now leveraging that message and that approach, and they've weaponized it into a full-on psychological warfare campaign against the black community. And the insidiousness of it, the difficulty to expose it, the difficulty to counteract it, is being contributed to by voices in the black community who are doing this for free. So you have white operatives in the conservative movement in this country who are being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to run campaigns like Walkaway, #Walkaway. And the reason that campaign is so efficient is because you have black people who, for no other reason but then they want to seem like they're intellectual, who are forwarding the same idea, and they're lending validity. They're giving this #Walkaway credence without even actually trying to. Look how you have become the useful idiot. In your pursuit to be the black intellectual, you have become the useful idiot for white supremacy in this country. And now this #Walkaway movement, this campaign that is nothing more than a psyop being carried out on the black community, has been elevated to the point where the wife of one of the Supreme Court justices is sharing this content. I mean, this has gone from being a campaign started by some guy from Nebraska. His last name is Straka. I forget his first name, all the way up to the wife of one of the Supreme Court justices in this country sharing this, knowing now that she has shared fallacious information or false information, fake news, essentially, still has it up on her page. I mean, this says a lot. This says a lot about the potency of actual fake news. This says a lot about the potency of conservative activism and how far. I mean, if you think for 1 second that our justices, our Supreme Court justices, are apolitical, then take a look at the wife of Clarence Thomas and her political activism. And I'm sorry, you can't separate, people didn't want to separate Hillary Clinton from Bill Clinton. So in this case, we cannot separate Clarence Thomas and his activism on that court from his wife's conservative political activism. But just look at how far it reaches, and look at how committed these people are to suppressing the black vote. They couldn't force you through slavery. They couldn't keep you from voting during Jim Crow and with poll tax and literacy tests and all out acts of terror, killing people who dared have the nerve to vote. Still, black people voted. Then they tried these voter ID laws, and that wasn't enough because more black people came and vote. And now they're just trying to, you know what? They say we can't force them to stop. Now we have to convince them to stop themselves. And they feel as though they have the perfect ploy to do that by using the language of black nationalists in this country I mean, seriously, you are being used by white supremacists to accomplish what slavery couldn't accomplish, to accomplish what Jim Crow couldn't do, to do what poll tax, what the Klan could not do through terror, what the literacy test could not do. You are being used by white supremacists to do what voter ID laws could not accomplish. Black nationalists in this country, your language and your entire platform is being used by white supremacists to stop black people from voting. What hundreds of years of terror in this country could not accomplish, they're using black people to get it done. And that is the most effective way of doing it. And that's why they can't find real black people who will take these pictures. They go out and they get stock photos. Ginni-Thomas shared, the wife of Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, shares photos of people, of fake black people saying that they're walking away from the Democratic Party because of illegal immigration. Look how they have weaponized your pseudo-intellectualism against your own people. And not only have they weaponized it, but you've created a pathogen. You've created something that is like a super virus, that is something that is all but impossible to counteract, except for the unbelievable and staggering racism of the Republican Party. That's literally, that's the irony here. Here's the irony. As problematic as the Democratic Party is, and as many things as I've listed as things that they have to get straight with regard to the black community specifically, but in general, just human beings and period, poor and working people across this country and the world. Republicans are so racist. They can't even help it. They cannot help but exude racism out of their pores. It's like somebody who's been drinking all night and the alcohol just comes out of their pores. You can smell it on them without them even opening their mouth. That's how sickeningly racist the Republican Party is right now. This is not, you don't have to take my word for it. Just just go online. Go online and hear them say it with their own words. Hear them say it with their own mouth. See it for yourself. The Republican Party and Donald Trump's party is so rabidly racist that this psychological warfare campaign that otherwise would be one of the greatest examples of effective propaganda, it's counteracted by their own racism. The virus is destroying itself. But the question is, how many black votes will self-suppress, will self-disenfranchise as a result of this campaign? And will it be enough for Donald Trump to win in 2020? No, we can't count on Republican racism being enough, even though it is in ample supply. The real question is, what are we going to do? What are people in power going to do to counteract this psychological warfare that's being waged 2 years in advance of the 2020 election? That's how committed they are to white supremacy. That's how committed they are to reelecting Donald Trump. Now, what are we going to do about it? Last night, Fox News shared something that was extremely, extremely terrifying, and I want to share it with you now. I hope you're not alone, sitting in the dark, listening to this.
I wanted to see, why the message was resonating, because really the socialist message is gaining steam within the Democrat Party.
So based upon what you saw, why are people drawn to this message?
Well, I was listening to them talk to Ocasio-Cortez and also to Cori Bush, who she was stumping for in St. Louis. And they say things, they talk about things that everybody wants, especially like if you're a parent. They talk about education for your kids, health care for your kids, the things that you want. And, if you're not really paying attention to how they're going to pay for it or, the rest of that, it's easy to fall into that trap and say, my kids deserve this. And, maybe the government should be responsible for helping me with that.
And as if that wasn't terrifying enough, Fox News actually played a clip. The things that this woman was saying, it will make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up.
We are a nation that will not stop until every child is born with the opportunity to go to college or trade school free of cost. We will not rest until every person in this country is paid a living wage to lead a dignified life.
The horror. The terror. Go to patreon.com/the BPD show for the rest of today's show.